Well, hi. That was a tune called John Lover Is Gone, more or less is played by the great clawhammer banjoist Wade Ward. You may have listened to that and said, wow, that's cool. I want to play banjo like that. I really like clawhammer. Now tell me, how do I do that? What is going on there? Well, in that particular tune, I was doing a lot of stuff there. None of it is real difficult, but I put a lot of things together to make that happen, as did Wade Ward. We can answer the question, what is clawhammer, by boiling all that down to some very fundamental things that are important to understand right from the get-go, so you can start playing true clawhammer banjo. And that's what I want to do in this video, is address the question, what is clawhammer banjo? So this is really for somebody who has just picked up the banjo for the first time, likes the clawhammer sound, and wants to get some sort of clue as to what the heck is going on. Well, let's first start with the fact that it's clawhammer banjo. And let's look at the banjo here, because there's one important thing that we need to take note of, and that is the presence of this fifth string, this short string here with the tuner lower down on the neck. So we're not just playing clawhammer any old banjo, we're clawhammering on a 5-string banjo, and that is critical to the whole sound of clawhammer. You could take a guitar banjo with 6 strings, or maybe even a tenor banjo, and do clawhammer-like motion, but it wouldn't come out the same. It's the presence of this short string, this 5th string, or sometimes called the thumb string, that makes all the difference. And what's important here is we have 4 long strings that come all the way up to the nut. And let's call those the melody strings. Those are going to be the strings that we play almost all the melody notes on. Okay? The 5th string is more of a drone string. Our thumb strikes that string, hence we call it the thumb string, and it keeps that string ringing in the background and creating a drone note that gives the banjo, the 5-string banjo, that unique sound quality. So it's critically important that we have this 5th string here in order to play clawhammer banjo. In more advanced playing, sometimes you play melody notes on the 5th string. Sometimes you play drones on these longer melody strings. But for now, let's boil it down. Let's keep it simple. Let's call the long strings the melody strings, and call the short 5th string either the thumb string or the drone string, or just the 5th string, as some people go about. So that's the basic aspects of the banjo that's really important here for playing clawhammer banjo. It's a 5-string banjo. Okay, next, we do a lot of finger motion and fretting or pressing down on the strings at different fret positions to get certain notes on the banjo. That's not unique to the banjo. Any string instrument, whether it's fretted or not, we have to stop the strings to make different notes to play a melody. So, and certainly clawhammer banjo is a combination, as is any banjo playing or any string instrument playing, a combination of what you do with your stroking hand or your picking hand, and what you also do with your fretting hand. Okay, so from my point of view, essentially, clawhammer banjo involves 2 digits on your stroking hand, your thumb and a finger. And it could be the index finger, or it could be the middle finger. Some pickers like myself prefer the index finger. Some prefer playing with their middle finger and their thumb. Now, if we start doing brushes and stuff like that, we might involve more fingers, but really boiled down, just 2 digits on our stroking hand. In making the clawhammer motion, a lot of people get started on this bump diddy, or boom chukka rhythm. And really there's a more fundamental rhythm to the whole thing that the bump diddy rhythm is derived from. And our hand motion is really an up and down motion with a little bit of in and out too. So we're really coming up and out and down and in, if you will. That's the real striking motion when we play clawhammer. But it's a pendulum-like motion. So we move our hand down and then our hand comes back up. Our hand comes down and our hand comes back up, so on and so forth. Now, the other thing that is unique about clawhammer is that the basic mechanics of it is a downstroke. Our finger doesn't pick up across the strings like in many guitar picking styles or in bluegrass banjo picking styles or classical banjo picking styles. Clawhammer is different. It's a downstroking way of playing the instrument. It's a very unique way of playing the instrument and kind of odd compared to other styles. And this sometimes gives problems to people when they start out because of this downstroke. There's many names for this. Clifton Hicks calls it overhand style. That's another old term for it. Frailing, framming the banjo, wrapping the banjo. There's all sorts of old names that have kind of fallen away. Clawhammer is a popular name now, but I think downstroking is actually much more descriptive of what the basic motion is all about. The basic note pattern that we're after here is a group of 4 notes, all evenly spaced, in a rhythm that comes out, if we use regular musical counting, it's 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Or, to use clawhammer banjo picker language, bump-a-diddy, 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 bump-a-diddy. Or some people say boom-a-chukka, 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 boom-a-chukka. So it's a group of 4 notes, and the motion is kind of a piston-like or pendulum-like motion. Is finger, downstroke finger, thumb on the 5th string, downstroke finger, thumb. So it's finger, thumb, finger, thumb, finger, thumb, finger, thumb. And when the finger goes down, it strikes one of the melody strings, wherever we want that melody note to go. And when the thumb comes up, it's pressed into the 5th string, comes up and sounds that 5th string as a drone note. So what's happening here is the 1 and 2 and, or bump-a-diddy, the finger is playing the beats and the thumb is playing off beats. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and I'm tapping my foot. Okay, so hopefully you could hear that. My finger was striking down with my foot taps, and my hand was coming up, and my thumb was coming off the 5th string between those beats, those taps of the foot, the beats. When my finger comes down, strikes a melody string. In between that is the thumb plucking off the 5th string, if you will, on an offbeat sounding that drone note. So another way to look at this bump-a-diddy, bump-a-diddy is we're doing melody, drone, melody, drone, melody, drone, melody, drone notes back and forth. That's the essential pattern that we play here. Bump-a-diddy, 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 boom-a-chukka. The other thing we want to remember is that our finger, again, in my case, the index finger and the thumb, work together as a unit. Most of the motion is coming from my arm here. I'm exaggerating the motion. You can use your wrist some, and some people are wrist players too, but these fingers are not operating independent of one another, okay? I'm not doing this sort of thing. They work as a mechanical unit. My arm is going up and down, and when my finger goes down, my thumb goes with it. When my thumb comes up, my finger comes with it. They're not independent agents. And you always want to plant that thumb on a string. Whenever you strike down on a melody note, that thumb needs to land somewhere on a string. In this basic introduction, it's always going to land on the 5th string. So that motion again, that up and down bump-a-diddy motion is going to be, let's just use the 1st string as the finger strike string followed by the thumb strike on the 5th string. So the string order here is going to be 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, boom, chugga, boom, chugga, bump-a-diddy, bump-a-diddy. So 4 notes together, 2 up and down motions to get those 4 notes. Whenever my finger strikes down on one of those melody strings, my thumb automatically lands on that 5th string. It puts a little tension in it as well. And then I use that tension to let my hand spring back up, set for the next downstroke, and as it springs back up, I sound that 5th string. So if I unmute the strings here, this is what it's going to sound like, again, on the 1st and the 5th string. Okay, next, how we get rhythm in this whole thing, different rhythms other than this monotonous 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and bump-a-diddy, bump-a-diddy. Now it becomes a matter of what notes we sound with the thumb and the finger. Maybe we don't sound every one of those notes in the bump-a-diddy pattern. If what we do is sound the 5th string every other time, so we do a bump, silent thumb, then did, T, we end up essentially with a bump diddy pattern. Okay, so that's where that comes from. So watch again. I'm going to keep the up and down bump diddy motion going, but I'm not going to sound the 5th string every time. I'm going to sound it every other time. First I'll mute the strings. Here's bump a diddy. Now let's go to bump diddy. And if I open the strings, it's like this. So you can see I kept the up and down pendulum-like motion going, the bump-a-diddy motion, but the notes I was playing were bump-diddy. I wasn't playing that 5th string every time. So by alternating what notes I play with my finger and my thumb, I can get different rhythms, different syncopations going when I play clawhammer banjo. But that is the absolutely fundamental motion that you need to establish in order to do this. Now we can start doing things like adding in a brush with our fingers. And some players use the brush a whole lot, but that's on top of what I just showed you of that basic up and down motion, that basic bump-a-diddy motion, or the derived bump-diddy from it. You can use hammer-ons and pull-offs and slides and other techniques up here on the fretboard to get different note patterns. You can use different rhythms down here depending upon what notes you play, but it's that up and down bump-a-diddy pattern, finger thumb, that really establishes the fundamental sound of clawhammer banjo. And of course we can start doing drop thumb, all that sort of thing. But that's just a development on everything I just showed you. So there you have it. That's, in my mind, the fundamentals really of what clawhammer banjo is all about. Okay, there it is. Hopefully this it provided some enlightenment, and keep on picking.